All right. It's coming. All right, the integer rules, your basic integer rules. We're going to start with the addition. So if we are adding integers, we're just going to focus on addition of integers. You guys were taught a song. It was to row, row, row your boat, right? Okay. The same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. That song, I'm not singing it because I don't do the song. No. Now, same signs. That's the important thing to remember, that if it happens to be the same sign, meaning that they are both positive numbers or they are both negative numbers, then you are going to add and keep. What we mean by add is you're going to add the numbers and you're going to keep the sign. So add the numbers and keep it positive if they were both positive, or add the numbers and keep it negative if they were both negative. This is for addition only. Now, if they happen to be different signs, with different signs, you're going to subtract the two numbers. And by subtraction, I mean you're going to take the higher number, not focusing on the sign. You're just taking the higher numbered base and subtracting the lower number base. And then you're going to keep the sign of the larger number. So whatever sign your higher number is, that's what the sign's going to be for your value. So the same signs, those are easy, simple. Most people can keep up with that and remember it very well. So let's focus on a couple of problems that are same sign. So if I have -2 plus -6, -2 plus -6, it's very simple. You add the numbers together and keep the sign. So what's 2 plus 6? 8. And then since they're both negative, it's going to be a -8. This is for addition. Okay, same signs, you add and keep the sign. Add the numbers together and keep the sign, so keep the negative. If I say I've got -4 plus -1, again, I'm going to add the numbers together and keep the sign. So what is that going to give me? -5. If you need to see it visually, you could also just draw a bunch of negative signs. You could draw 4 negative signs, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now I want to add another negative sign to it. So I'm going to add another negative sign to it. How many negative signs do I now have? 5 negative signs. Okay? And the same thing would be if they're both positive. That's not any different. If it's 2 plus 6. So a +2 plus a +6 is going to give you a +8. And if you've got a +4 and a +1, you're going to have a +5. So that's just the addition rule. Same signs, add and keep. Let's go ahead and turn to page 7 of your notebook. Now please don't get this rule mixed up, because I know a lot of people are thinking, well wait, but if you multiply same signs then it changes it. That's different. Addition and multiplication are two totally different strategies. So you want to make sure that you're focusing on the rule based off of the operation we're performing. Okay? I'll go back to it at the end, okay? All right. So now the next part of the practice was adding different signs. So when we need to add different signs, so if we've got a -2 plus a +6, these are different. So the idea was, hey, you're going to subtract. You're going to take your highest number and subtract your lowest number. We're not going to focus on the signs right now. So we're focusing on the fact that we have a 2 and a 6. Which one's higher? 6. So we're going to take the 6 and we're going to subtract a 2, just like normal, which would give us a 4. Then we go to the idea that we're going to keep the sign of the larger number. Okay, so the larger number, the 6, was positive, right? 6 is larger. 6 is positive. So my answer is positive, because I'm going to keep that sign. So that means my final answer here is a positive 4. And again, if you are confused by that process and you need to see it using tiles, how many negative tiles am I going to write? 2, right? 2 negative tiles. So I'm going to write 2 little negative signs. How many positive tiles would I make? 6. So I'm going to write 6 plus signs. And now, remember, last year they said every negative can be canceled by a positive. What's that called? Zero pairs. Thank you. So every negative that we have is going to be canceled out by a positive. So we happen to have 2 0 pairs that exist here. So they're gone. And that leaves me with how many positives? 4 positives. Okay, another way that I like to tell people to think about it, you know, I'm a sports fan. I like to watch football. So I'm going to pretend like these are sports teams instead. So I'm going to call it team negative and team positive. So if I've got team negative and I've got team positive, how many points does team negative have currently? If I look at the problem and I view those as points, how many points is team negative? 2 points, right? Team negative has 2 points. How many points does team positive have? 6 points. So then what I focus on is who won and by how much. So who won? Team positive. By how much? 4. So team positive wins by 4. So that means it's a positive 4 for the answer. It's just another way of looking at it. Okay, so let's take a couple of examples here. Let's say we have -7 plus 2. -7 plus 2. So once again, I'm going to show it to you, all 3 methods. Okay, the first method, which is what you're going to need to eventually be able to do in your head, is the let me subtract them and keep the sign of the larger number. So if I subtract, again, we're subtracting our higher number minus our lower number. Which one's the higher number?
7.
The 7. Remember, we're not focusing on the negative, we're just focusing on the number. So 7 minus the 2, which is going to give us 5. And then we're going to keep the sign of the larger number. So what sign was the 7?
Negative.
Negative, right? 7 is negative, answer is negative. So I know my final answer is -7. Okay, if you need to look at it graphically or using tiles, algebra tiles, 7 negative signs, and 2 positive signs, and then canceling out the 0 pairs. That leaves us with 5 negative signs left over. So -5. And again, you could look at it as a sports team. Yeah.
Couldn't you do it like this? Instead of you could change the plus sign to a subtraction sign and change the 2 to a negative to get that same answer.
Well, we change all of our subtraction into addition usually. So you wouldn't, I mean, most people would look at it and they'd go, oh, if it's -7 minus the -2, they might think that it's a -9 by accident. So you want to make sure that you're steering clear of that. We always change, and that's what we're going to be talking about in a second, that we change our subtraction into addition by doing additive inverse. Okay? All right. Try these 2 problems on your own real quickly. Yes. Do you have a question? On which tests? On which tests? Like milestones, exams, tests? On Friday? Yeah. We're going to do it in a computer lab, but you will have paper with it gridded out for where you can show your work and what your final answer would be. All right. Well, I'm just going to do number 2. I'm going to call on somebody. I already called on that person before. No, I already called on that person before. Oh, I haven't called on this one. 26. Who's 26? Hi. Angie, what'd you get for number 2?
4.
Not quite. Try again. Rework your math a little bit. What is it? 6. There you go. So it's going to be a positive 6. Again, if you subtract, if you do 18 minus 12, you're going to get 6, and 18 is a positive, so therefore 6 is going to be positive. So it's a positive 6. Okay? Now, what about for problem 3? And let's see here, Angie, you were Ravenclaw, so Ravenclaw's going to get the points. And up person 7. Who's 7? Okay, Chris? -7. Very good. So again, if you subtract them, you're going to do 11 minus 4, which is going to give you 7. But 11 was a negative number. Therefore, your answer is going to be a negative number as well. So -7. Okay? And Chris, you are Gryffindor. Okay? Let's go on. Go ahead and go on to page 8. Huh? You have no idea. It's because it's the end of the day.
Imagine 349. Still staying there.
It's not exactly how time works, but okay. All right, with subtraction. With subtraction, we utilize what we call the additive inverse. That means that you're basically adding the opposite. So we really don't have a subtraction of integers. We convert them into an addition problem always. So you only have to focus on those addition rules because you're adding the opposite. You guys might have seen it last year with keep, change, and change. So I'll write that here off to the side, that you keep the first number, you change the operation into an addition, and then you change the second number into its opposite value. So if it was positive, it now becomes negative, and vice versa. Well, keep, change, flip is more of when we talk about dividing with fractions. Okay, so now we have a negative 15 minus 2. So with that whole additive inverse, just like I said, we're going to keep the first number just as it is. So that negative 15 is going to stay a negative 15. Then we're going to change that subtraction sign into an addition sign, hence the reason it's called additive inverse. And then we change the second number into its direct opposite. So instead of it being a 2, it now becomes a negative 2. Okay, so now it's an addition, and it's actually an addition of the same sign. So when they're the same sign, we just add them and keep that sign. So negative 15 plus negative 2 is going to give you a negative 17. You keep the sign as it is when it's addition. We're still on the addition subtraction part. Okay? All right. Let's say we have negative 5 minus negative 4. Again, we're going to keep. So we're going to keep the negative 5 just as it is. We're going to change that subtraction into addition. And then we're going to change negative 4 into a positive 4. So now we've got that addition problem, negative 5 plus a positive 4. So they're different signs. When they're different signs, you're really going to subtract them. That's a negative and that's a positive. They're different signs. Because the additive inverse, we never keep it in subtraction format. We always change it into an addition problem. Okay? So once we've got it in an addition problem, then we just follow our addition rules. Not right now. So negative 5 plus 4 is going to give us a negative 1. Yes. It's negative what? Because if we have 5 negatives and 4 positives, so if you want to write it out, 5 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4 positives, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's going to get canceled, that's canceled, that's canceled, that's canceled. We're left with just one negative sign left. I know. Addition rules, if they're opposite signs, you really subtract them and keep the sign of the larger number. It's kind of like, let's say, Joel, let's say that you owe me $5. Now, you only have $4 in your pocket. Are you going to be able to pay me all my money? No. But if you give me $4, you still owe me how much? $1. So that's still negative. So negative is what you owe. Positive is what you're able to pay. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right. Let's go on to multiplication and division. So for multiplication and division, Draw a triangle.
Is this for teachers?
No.
What am I?
All right, with multiplication and division only, can you use the triangle? Do not use this triangle for any other problems, but no matter how many times I say that, people are still going to do it anyway. But with multiplication and division, you've got a positive symbol at the top of the triangle, and then the bottom two corners of the triangle, you've got negative symbols. And what this indicates to you is that when you're multiplying numbers together, you hide the signs that you're multiplying with, and the sign that's remaining is the answer. So multiplication and division are probably the easiest ones to combat. So if we have -3 times +2, that means I'm going to cover a negative because of -3, and I'm going to cover a positive because of the +2, and my answer is going to be a negative. That's what's remaining. That's how the triangle works. And again, it only works for multiplication and division. Do not use this for addition or subtraction. So if I multiply a negative times a positive, I'm going to get a negative for my answer. And then I just multiply like normal. 3 times 2 would be 6. So I get a -6 for my answer. Mohammed?
The strategy of the keep, change, when you change the subtraction to positive, to adding, do you only do it in subtracting integers?
Only for subtracting integers do you need to do the keep, change. Yeah. All right, let's try another one here. If I've got a -5 and I'm multiplying it by a -4, now I've got 2 negatives that I'm multiplying by. So I'm going to cover up one of the negatives to represent -5 and cover up the other negative to represent -4, and that means my answer has to be a what? A positive, because that's what's remaining. Okay, so 2 negatives, when we multiply 2 negatives, we get a positive answer. So 5 times 4 is 20. I'm going to have a positive 20. Go ahead and try a couple of these on your own. Yes.
Okay, anyways. So when you have a negative and a positive, it's always coming for a negative.
A negative and a positive will give you a negative for multiplication and division only.
June, which one?
No.
Why you have to move it that people can't see it's too?
I have it in alphabetical order while I remember people's names. Once I know people's names, I'll move you guys around. But you got to give me a couple weeks. I got 132 kids.
That's a little.
Over a period of 16 years, so I've got tons of names going through my head. 132. 132 kids. All right, who can tell me what is -20 divided by -2 going to give us? Kristen? Positive 10, very good. Okay, again, if you take the negative and the other negative, cover them up, you're left with a positive, and 20 divided by 2 is 10. Alex, what do we get for 24 divided by -6? Very good, -4. If we take a positive for the 24 and cover it by a negative for that -6, we're left with a negative sign still showing, so -4 is our answer. So multiplication and division is probably the easiest ones that we deal with. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys, because we're not going to have time to play the hot potato, so I'm just going to give you guys some practice problems that we're going to do on the sheet. See how you do, okay? So go ahead and turn to page 9 and number it, let's say 1 through 10. And it's going to be a mixed review. So they're going to be out of order. It's not going to be all addition and then all subtraction and stuff like that, okay? It's going to be mixed review. Absolutely. You may use your notes, just do not use a calculator. I want you to try it without. I can stop